All right, everybody, 1870 Bible study. We're going to look at Revelation chapter 12. Hope you enjoyed this part right here because I'm going to erase what's already written because it's getting too cluttered. Mainly I'm going to erase this part down here with Sheol and Hades and all that. Erase 2300 days because this is a Revelation study and a Daniel study. So you don't need to know about 2300 days, it's a separate deal. I am, however, going to come down here and show in Revelation 5 that the abyss was opened. Because, hey, you need to know that. So that's the abyss being open right there. Right there. So that's important to know for things studying later, that the abyss was open. Revelation chapter 12. Now you got to put this stuff in order in your head. Revelation 12 is crazy with parentheses. The first sign is the first 3 verses, and there's another sign, and then a war breaks out, and it goes back to fill the story and more. So we're going to try to walk you through the order of this, because it can confuse you if you're not really familiar with this chapter, but I have really studied this chapter a lot. So let's just see how we want to do this here. I probably should have a plan before I started recording this, but hey, that's okay. Nothing like the last minute to put a plan together. So Revelation 12, you're going to have the woman, the dragon, Satan. Remember, the woman is about to give birth. It is, in my opinion, for things I've done in other shows, guys, the woman, the child she gives birth to is the 144,000. That is who I believe, because you're going to find out they are redeemed. Go back to Revelation 1:14. You're going to find out that they are virgins. It says they are virgins, the 144,000. They were redeemed from men, being the first fruits of God and to the Lamb. The word for first fruits will take you back into Numbers. In the book of Numbers, you were to offer your firstborn child of a woman, and that child was to be redeemed to God as the first fruits to God. So that's what's looking to with 144,000. They may not be literally children, but the more and more I read this, I think the more and more they are literally children. But it could be some symbolism for something else, but I lean towards a literal aspect of that there. So, she bore a male child who was ruling nations with a rod of iron. Child's caught up to the throne of God. Now, I've covered a whole show on audio about this. Go Blog Talk Radio. I can show you in there why this is not referring to Christ. It is not. It is way out of order for how things happen with Christ. It is alluding to the birth of Christ. It's also alluding to the birth of Moses. Because it's a pattern here that's going to be followed. It's going to happen a third time. And that pattern is going to be followed. This is going to fulfill the child being born from Hosea, the first 3 chapters, which, by the way, is who the woman is. The woman is Israel. Without doubt, some believe the woman is also the church grafted into Israel. You can believe what you want to there. But the woman is, without a doubt, Israel. You've got to read the first 3 chapters of Hosea to know why she's pregnant in the first place. She was adulterous. Go read Ezekiel chapter 16, Ezekiel chapter 23. Israel as a nation whored herself out after every other nation, every other god there was. God got fed up with her and handed her over. Matter of fact, the punishment was that, she was going to be ravished by every single nation, and she was. As a nation, Israel has been ruled by every nation in the world. Israel also, if you picture, we'll make a quick little drawing here. If you picture Egypt, which is in Africa, here it's a terrible drawing of Africa, I know. And you picture, you got Saudi Arabia here, which is a big desert. You got the Mediterranean Sea all the way out through here, through Africa. You got a little bit of land right here, then you got, of course, all of Asia out this way, all of Europe out this way, and that's a terrible looking picture there. And water here, water here, water here, water here. That's all land up there. What do you got here? Europe, Asia, and Africa. This right here is Israel, the land bridge. That's what Israel was always walked over. It is a land bridge connecting the trade markets. If you wanted to walk by land from Africa to Asia or to Europe, you had to go through Israel. That's why the King's Highway went through here, all these highways. There was a highway that ran along the coastline here. There was a highway that went along the backside of Israel here because it was a great big mountain range. One of the highways ran through the Dead Sea Valley. That was the one they usually used because this highway over here by the ocean, you got eaten up by mosquitoes if you went that way. And they didn't have off back in those days. So if you got eaten by mosquitoes, it's a good chance you would die because they carried, diseases. So, not like the modern era. So anyways, that's Israel. Israel played the harlot with all these nations. The Assyrians, who came out of Assyria, which today would be modern day northern part of Iraq, modern day Georgia, eastern Turkey, Armenia, all those ages of the Caucasian mountain range. That's Assyria. They played with Babylon, which was Iraq, southern Iraq. Persia, which was really Iran area type of the day. The Syrians, which was Syria and Turkey. Anyway, all these people, they played around with them in Egypt down here, and it was spiritual adultery, which, God uses the woman being pregnant to show you this was the spiritually adulterous people. I might be reading too much into this, but one of the things that makes me question if this meant the church is because, well, the woman was found to be with child. The church is presented as a virgin to Christ, so she wouldn't be with child. But also, by the way, when the children are born, when you read about child who's born in Revelation chapter 7, it's from the 12 tribes of Israel, not from the 12 disciples of the church. So one of the reasons why I say that, not a big deal. It still might be the church. I could be wrong there. And it's not a big deal if I am. Because in the end, the church is protected. Israel is protected. Maybe the same way they're protected, and maybe protected in different ways. We don't know. Well, we know how Israel is protected. Israel is going to be sent to Basra, into Petra, and they're going to be protected there, and Michael is going to stand over them and protect them. I already alluded to, that's what Revelation 10 is describing to you, where Israel is in Petra. But you're going to see the events unfold here. The woman goes to give birth, and the dragon stands before the woman, who's about to give birth. So the woman has not given birth yet. So the dragon, still up here at some point, is standing before the woman who's about to give birth to the child. The child has not yet been born. So this all happens here. Now the dragon, his tail drew a third of stars out of heaven. Remember I told you there's 2 points. Stars fall here and stars fall here. Important to pick this one up here, because you're going to find out why in this chapter. The woman is going to fly into the wilderness for 1,260 days. By the way, that's 42 months. Right there. Remember the 42 months I told you? Kingdom of the Beast, 42 months. I showed you we don't know how far it goes, but we know the 42 months of the 2 witnesses ends some point right around here. That's why I conclude the 42 months of the beast and the 42 months of the 2 witnesses is the exact same 42 months. I could be wrong there, but because God used the same number, I believe He wanted me to see the same point in time. That's why He would have said 1,290 days if He meant something different. But He didn't. He said 42 months, because 1,290 days would be 43 months. So, all that being said, the dragon draws a third of stars out of heaven. So let's go ahead and we'll just draw a couple stars falling here. Stars falling there. Terrible stars falling, but hey, stars fall. And they stand there to devour the male child who is to rule the thing. Now, the woman in verse 6 is going to flee into the wilderness, but that hadn't happened yet. He's letting you know what she's going to do in verse 6. That don't happen until later in the chapter. So a war broke out in heaven. Oh wait, let's go back to verse 5 here. She bore a male child, and her child was caught up to the throne. So when her child, we'll use orange for her child. Her child is born and is caught up to the throne, right? So we'll draw that going up somewhat like this. And what happens when the child is caught up to the throne? A war breaks out in heaven. Why does a war break out in heaven? Well, Satan and his 30 angels, they go after the child. They're going to pursue the child up to heaven. When they get up to heaven, there's going to be a war in heaven. War is going to break out in heaven between Michael and his angels, Michael and 2/3 of the angels against Satan and 1/3 of the angels. Remember, the angels are stars. So, they do not prevail, and there was found in place a heaven for them no longer. So the great dragon was cast out of heaven. That serpent of old, the devil who deceives the world, and his angels were cast out with them. So they've already come down earlier. Whoop, wrong marker. Get this stuff mixed up here. I put it on the wrong cap here. They come down here. They come back up here because they're chasing that child being born. The child was born from the woman here. She gives birth. The child goes up to heaven. They pursue the child. They get cut off by Michael. Here comes Michael and his men. They come down here, protecting the path, and they fight. There's a great big battle here. Then the dragon and his angels are kicked back down to heaven, back down to earth. You got to catch this here. There actually were 2 fallings in here. That's why I said the 6th trumpet is the first fall. I'm sorry, the 6th seal is the first fall. It's when the powers of heaven are shaken. War breaks out in heaven some point between here. By the 3rd trumpet, they're cast back down again. That's why, by the 4th trumpet, they're cast back down again. That's why I believe it's possible the wormwood is also Satan in the 3rd trumpet, but we don't know that for sure. But in Revelation chapter 12, you're going to see that. So let's put some verses to this now. As I use my picture to show the stars fall, chase the child back up to heaven after it's born. Remember, the woman's here. Remember what I said about the woman in Revelation 10? Doesn't get taken here, sealed by God, right? Why was the woman not here yet? The woman was pregnant with child. That's why in Revelation 10 she doesn't show up until the fifth trumpet in the wilderness. At some point after the fifth trumpet is when she gets here. Because at this point right here, the woman is pregnant with child, gives birth to child. Why did the stars fall? They came down to devour the child, right? But the child is caught up to a throne. This may all happen during the sixth seal. Possibly. I'm alluding to that part there. They go to the throne, then a war breaks out. However long the war is, it happens all through this point right here. This is the war, however long that is. And by the fourth trumpet, I'm sorry, not the third trumpet, they're cast back down because one third of the stars lose their shine. So I'm going to erase my little diagram I showed you here. We're going to put this into a different order. Now that I've done this, we're going to call this one. All right, we'll call this one Revelation 12. We'll do it in red. Revelation 12, R12, just like the stuff you put in your car when you want your AC to be cold. So, Revelation 12, let's put some verses on this here. The woman is with child to give birth. We'll put this one here. It's before that. The woman's before that. So that is, where is she with child? What verse was that? Verse 1 through 2 and 4. So verses 1 through 4 right here. Now, he drew a third of stars out of heaven. That's verse 4. It's the sixth seal right here. So you can put that on up to right here with the wrath of God. The exact same time of the wrath of God. It's the same thing. The wrath of the Lamb begins at the exact same point in time. We learned that earlier when I did the drawing with the wrath of the Lamb there. Not to be confused with the wrath of God at 7 bolts. So right here, this begins at the sixth seal. Verses 1 through 4. She bore a male child. So verse 5 happens at this point, maybe even a little bit later, right here afterwards. So the war breaks out in heaven, verse 6, right? Or is that verse 7? Verse 7 is going to occur somewhere around in here. So we'll put verse 7 here for Revelation 12. Then the war occurs in heaven. Satan and the angels fight, and the dragon was cast out. So we'll put that up around here somewhere. Dragon is cast out right here, and his angels are cast out with him. No longer a place found for them. That would be trumpet number 4. That would be verse 9. So right here at verse 9. So there's your pattern. Revelation 12, 1 through 4 occurs here. 5 occurs right around this area. Verse 7 occurs right here. Verse 9 occurs right here. This is important to remember this here. Because that's the order, right? So what happens? Therefore rejoice to them, and woe to the inhabitants of the earth and to the sea, for the devil has been cast down to you. What were the woes? The fifth trumpet. 1, 2, 3 woes. Remember that now, because you just got a time frame verse right here in verse 12. So verse 12 is going to be one of these woes. I'm going to conclude as probably the first one. Verse 12, we'll put that right there. It's a terrible drawing of 12. I have to do that again. You have to forgive me, guys. I'm actually doing this sideways because in the editing process, I'm going to flip this video over the other way so the board looks this way. So, that being said, we got here, where was I at here? I lost track of where I was. When the dragon saw he'd been cast down to the earth, okay, well, verse 13 takes you back over here somewhere. Verse 13 is over there out of whack. He then goes after to pursue the woman. That lines back up with this part right here. So we can just erase that. It's just confusing. He pursues the woman. The woman is given 2 wings of a great eagle to be carried off into the wilderness. That is verse 14. So verse 14 is going to occur right here. And why did I leave that picture of the abyss down here? The serpent is going to spew water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. Remember the promises? The rainbow over the head? The world will not be flooded again by water. What happens? Verse 16, the earth opened its mouth to swallow up the flood and help the woman. Fifth trumpet will begin and end with the opening of the earth. Now this could be either the beginning or the end. So right here at verse 16, we'll put verse 16 here, on marker again. Verse 16 right here. This is either the beginning or the ending of the 150 days. I don't know for sure which one it is. But the earth will open its mouth at both ends. We know it opens at the beginning. It could also open at the end. This, you believe what you want to believe there. So at this point in time, the woman is given the wings of a great eagle. Revelation 10 begins here. How long? For a time and times and a half time. What's times and a half a time? It's 3.5 years. What's 3.5 years? 42 months. So right here, Revelation 12, 16 concludes 42 months. Times and a half a time. That's Revelation 10. Verse 16 of Revelation 12 is Revelation 10. The dragon was enraged with the woman. He went off to make war with the rest of her offspring and to keep the commandments of God. What does that mean? The rest of her offspring. Who are her children? The sons of Israel. Who is the rest of her offspring? The 1/3 remnant prepared. Right there in Revelation chapter 10. That will be protected by Michael the angel. 1/3 will be saved. 2/3 will be lost. That's what Revelation 12 is all about, guys. Now, whether or not the church is grafted into this is really a non-point. You got to first see what it relates to Israel. Once you get how Revelation 12 follows the timeline here, and you got timeline markers, you got stars falling from heaven twice. The first one at the 6th, second one at the 4th trumpet. Then you got the abyss being opened at the 5th trumpet. That's when the earth opens its mouth to swallow the flood. By the way, where did the flood waters come from? When the earth opened up its mouth and the floods came out in the days of Genesis, that's when the angels went into the bottomless pit. The earth opened its mouth, water came gushing out, the angels got sucked down in like a bathtub draining into the bottomless pit, held under chains of darkness. That's how he has the key to the bottomless pit. Remember in Revelation chapter 9, an angel falling to the earth. What was that angel falling to the earth? The name Wormwood, right? From the 3rd trumpet. He has the key to the bottomless pit. Does that mean he literally unlocked it? No, the key was he spewed water out after the woman. Because he did that, the bottomless pit opened. So it ain't that he literally had the key, he turned the lock. He had the move. It was his move. It's like playing a game. I don't know, cards or something. It's not what I'm thinking of. Chess game. His move. He made his move. His move caused the earth to open its mouth to swallow up the flood he poured out. That's why the name of the star, the 3rd of the waters, became wormwood. Remember the wormwood waters? He pours the water out of his mouth. There's your connection. That was the devil doing all that. Even though the 3rd angel sounded it and stuff like that, but you got to wrap your heads around this. You got to read the entire Bible and put these timelines together. Revelation 12 perfectly fits within this timeline right here. So, dragons in a rage makes war with the rest of the children. That's the people he goes after down here. Of course, he can't get them. So when he can't get them, the 3rd that's protected here, he's going to go for the 3rd. 1/3 dies, if I remember this correctly. 1/3 burned up by fire. The other 3rd is saved. He's going to make war with a 3rd during the 42 months. That's going to be Group 7B. The war he makes with them. How does he make war with them? 6th trumpet, 200 million. He might be related to that group somehow. Maybe, maybe not. You can include that however you want to. So, 17 minutes long. I hope this one was fruitful. I'm going to have to, we'll see if I have to erase this or not. I've filled up a lot of space on this thing. So, that's it for this one. We'll come back to Revelation 13, 1870 Bible study. I hope you're digging it, because it's fun.